on one hand, they're saying, well, we've got to have all this because we've got to be able to strike over, shut down plants. But yet their political operation is promoting this EV stuff that's actually going to put UAW members on the unemployment line.
Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. The United Auto Workers Union is making good on its threat to expand its strike nationwide if no real progress was made in talks by today. However, that only applies to General Motors and Chrysler parent Stellantis, whereas talks with Ford Motor have moved forward more positively, at least for the union. Aside from anger over pay and benefits, the union is concerned about the green energy transformation transition and its push to electric vehicles, causing job losses in the sector, which could hit over 100,000 if current projections are accurate. However, the Wall Street Journal is warning that if the big three automakers and the union don't work together to address a declining industry overall, they will fail together. The piece recounts how, from the time of LBJ, the federal government has swooped in with a mix of tariffs, strict regulations, and bailouts that have saved us from imminent economic catastrophe, but also has had the nasty side effect of allowing the big three to continue apart from the free market and making detrimental business decisions. The piece concludes that, quote, a prolonged UAW strike could fuel inflation by reducing the supply of cars and in turn cause the Federal Reserve to maintain high interest rates. This would hinder Biden's re-election campaign. His administration could encourage automakers to reach a settlement with the UAW by, say, offering to eliminate fuel economy standards, electric vehicle market share mandates, and proposed mandates to install automated safety equipment, which would reduce their costs. The government could then replace those inefficient policies and fuel taxes with an efficient vehicles miles travel tax on drivers that would reduce driving, especially during peak periods, and thereby reduce automobile emissions, safety, and congestion externalities, end quote. Now, that last point he makes, as written by a senior fellow at the very liberal Brookings Institute, is concerning to me because that's exactly what the left wants, is to issue a mileage tax, in other words, to further reduce our freedom of mobility. So as always, as Biden claims to be standing with the unions by simultaneously pushing the policies that got us all into this mess, he might also be looking to use the crisis to advance his green agenda, too, by pretending to help the strikers get back to work. Joining us now to discuss is Mark Mix, the president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation. Mark, thanks for being here tonight.
Kara, good to be with you again. There's always something to talk about when it comes to Joe Biden and the unions, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely. And so what does the union specifically want here? Because it seems some of their demands are unreasonable, despite the strikers' reasonable fear for the green energy transition to electric.
Yeah, that's a big issue, Karen. I thank you for bringing that up because, when you think about the UAW and the top leadership of the union itself, they're the ones that have been promoting these Democrats with their political action committee money, interestingly enough, unfortunately, taken out of the paychecks of workers, that are members of the union and used to promote this cram down of electric vehicles, which everyone knows, even the UAW members know, and Shawn Fain knows, is going to reduce the employment in the big three automotive companies and those that are producing electric vehicles now, although they're a little better positioned, their competition is, than obviously the big three. So, on one hand, they're saying, well, we've got to have all this because we've got to be able to strike over, shut down plants. But yet their political operation is promoting this EV stuff that's actually going to put UAW members on the unemployment line.
And that's the sad part. And also, I was hearing that there's fears, and it seems in some cases it's already happened. Some of the non-UAW, some of the non-union members who work at factories around this nation, that they've lost their job because of the strikes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we're now at 38 units, additional 38 units on top of the 3 that were struck back on last Friday morning or last Friday, or Thursday night, Friday morning, whatever it is. And now we have 38 units in 20 states. But in the meantime, to your point, Kara, Ford has shut down a plant up in Wayne, Michigan, putting 600 people out of their jobs. In Kansas City, Missouri, GM has said that a supplier to GM has said 2,000 workers are going to be idle because of the Wentzville strike action. And so, yeah, there's this kind of this wave, if you will, of the way the integration of the automotive system works from a parts standpoint and an inventory standpoint. There are a lot of workers going to be affected by the action here by the UAW. We'll see how long it goes and how long the workers will stand for it.
And is that part of the problem here, the pattern that we've seen time and time again, as you and I have talked on a myriad of different cases involving unions at this point, that workers can have some real issues, some real grievances, but then the union gets involved, and the next thing you know, what they're asking for is completely different, and it makes everything worse off for everybody. Does that seem to be the pattern here as well?
Yeah, it is. Well, let's go back historically to what the UAW has. Remember, Kara, this is a union that's still under federal oversight for corruption and extortion and stealing rank and file union members' money. The last two presidents, well, not the last two, I think two ago, went to federal prison because of the corruption at the UAW. So Shawn Fain has got to, first of all, clean up the union and convince rank and file workers that he's done that and that all that's gone. And it's not. There's still active investigations going on right now at the UAW. And then he's got to stand up and basically trying to claw back what the Obama administration did to both Chrysler and GM back when they filed bankruptcy back in 2009. And the Obama team came in and said, here's how we're going to reorganize. You got to fire your CEO. You got to give up these certain things. The taxpayers of the United States will own your company, and you got to comply with this. And that's when inflation didn't matter. But when you have a 17.5% increase in the consumer price index, i.e. the cost of living under Joe Biden, it makes a difference now that you were locked into a 4-year contract that didn't have cost of living adjustments. And so they're crying about things that Obama did that have been exacerbated by the Biden administration. And if they go back to the Trump economics during his 4 years, they'd be a whole lot better off, I think. And I think Trump's going to make that point, but not tomorrow, but the next day, I suspect.
I suspect too as well, and I think it's a good thing that he's skipping the second GOP debate to be with the strikers, to be with the people themselves, not specifically with the union bosses, but with the people themselves in Detroit as well. So as you're watching all this shake out, what are some of your predictions? I know predictions can be a little wonky to do because, you know, who knows what the future is going to hold, but how do you see this whole debacle shaking out over the coming days and weeks?
Well, hopefully it's not a long strike, Kara. I mean, the impact on the auto companies already at $1.6 billion, according to a Deutsche Bank analyst already. And the damage, if it goes on forever, or for not forever, obviously, but weeks, if you will. I mean, not only did the union have to pay attention to the strike fund, which has $825 million on it. And if everybody goes on strike, I don't know how long that lasts. But, you know, right now you've got United Auto Worker union members that are working for $500. Well, not working. They're getting strike pay of $500. And the rest of their rank and file brother and sisters are working for full pay. I wonder at some point that's going to break. And then these people that you already mentioned that are idle, that are suppliers, whether that's going to hurt them. And so there's lots going on here. I hope it comes to a quick conclusion. You know, the demands that they're making, I think most Americans think 40% increase in wages and less work. 8 hours less work, 20% reduction in the work hours is something that everyone would like to have if you could get it. But I think it leads to increased costs for consumers, and it hurts the economy, and it hurts the entire American workforce and the economy, for example. So
that it does, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, Kara. Thanks again, and we'll probably talk to you again soon, I suspect.
I suspect too as well. So.